Lucie. Pluschke is the East Africa Hub Manager for Water, Energy and Food for GIZ. We talked about the importance of this nexus, water, energy and food. And GIZ is very passionate about it and passionate about changing, and especially changing in Africa. And she's in charge of the East African region. So we welcome you, Lucie, to take us through your presentation and your keywords, and we shall then interact with you immediately after. Let's talk to Lucie.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. So just give me one quick second. Here it is. And then we should be on track. All right, just a quick confirmation. Is it visible?
It is.
Okay, good. Then let me start. Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this virtual conference on the World Energy Day in 2020. I want to thank innovators and Aria Finergy who have been pushing this work, and especially the work around the World Energy Day. And we're very happy to partner up with you, to continue partnering up with you to make Africa's energy sector more innovative, efficient, and transformative. So I sort of picked up here on the theme of the conference already. As Caroline said in the introduction, I manage the East Africa activities for an international initiative that's called Water and Energy for Food on behalf of the German Development Corporation, GIZ. And there our goal is to scale up climate-friendly and resource-efficient innovations, particularly in the food and agriculture sector. It seems like somewhat of a niche topic for the energy sector, but it is very cross-sector in its nature. And what I want to touch on now in this presentation is exactly on this, how when we go across sectors, if we think from different angles, new ideas come to light, and particularly the innovation aspect new ideas come and it will become more innovative. So yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. It's also a very exciting day because I think it started in 2012, this World Energy Day in Dubai. And ever since then, we've had activities like this one all around the world. So it is a global event, and it's wonderful to see everyone come together. All right, so let us start. I was asked to speak at this conference, and then I took a moment to think about the title, "The Future of Energy." It's quite a big thing that to talk about, and in particular the innovation aspect, as I mentioned. I was asking myself, okay, what is innovative? What are the elements that I want to pick on? And I was actually last week in Marsabit at the Turkana wind farm, so it was a little bit out of reach, disconnected, but I was able to see some of the operation, and it is impressive. In itself, the wind turbines aren't so innovative. We've had them for a while, but the scale and the location of the farm is incredible. It's innovative for Kenya. It's innovative for sort of grid-based systems. And in general, it helped Kenya make great strides towards greening the energy mix, its energy mix, and improving access. So that almost seems like it's become mainstream. Or it is mainstream for when you look at the energy mix in Kenya. So then what are the next challenges? What are the next frontiers where we can break through with innovation? What are the new markets and the new technologies? And so there I just organized my thoughts into three. The first aspect is the great opportunities that are beyond your typical energy sectors. The previous speaker mentioned already transport, flying, car industry, boats. There's a lot of diesel that is used, and perhaps there are great opportunities, we'll see, towards electrifying that sector. Agriculture is another one. The second point is, why not take the lead? Why not, for Kenya or any other African country, set the tone and build on these opportunities that lead to green jobs, to green recovery, especially sort of in the context of COVID, and towards climate action. And the third aspect is that innovation, or sort of the future for energy, goes beyond technological solutions. It's about business models. It's about how we get finance to companies, but also to users or customers. And a lot can be done there that is new and innovative. And I'm just going to deep dive a little bit into some of these aspects now. The first thing I mentioned is the electrification of different sectors that haven't been electrified, or where it seemed to have been problematic before. Africa's urban population is expected to add 500 million by 2040. We are expecting greater energy demand from industrial production, agricultural production, processing, from mobility. So we are expecting a greater demand in these sectors, which is another good reason to invest a bit more into the electrification of those. But not all of those things have to be on grid. And so now I'm just taking a look at the solar off-grid market. And solar off-grid, I mean, I'm speaking to expert, I don't need to go too much into this, but essentially it is a system that is not connected to the grid, usually has a battery system attached to it, and you can, most importantly, manage off-grid applications. And that's really useful, particularly in rural areas or in remote areas. And agriculture then obviously comes to mind as a next frontier. So when we talk about off-grid solutions, here you have a little bit of an overview. This comes from a Dalberg analysis from 2018 that was quite extensive. And particularly in the agricultural area, we're looking at irrigation, we're looking at cooling, we're looking at drying and milling, but some of the other aspects too. And there it gets interesting, particularly when you can combine domestic users with industrial users or agricultural users. The multiple users is where we're really looking forward to working with at the moment. And what kind of technologies in particular? So as We4Food, as my program, we're supporting in particular, as you can see here, water pumps, irrigation systems. You have various systems for cooling and drying and processing, like milling and husking and oil presses, etc. And this is really kind of where where we're looking into what is the market and how do we spread it. And the idea is really, I mean, there is some great companies that are African-based, East African-based, West African-based. That's sort of where we are working, but generally we're looking at the sub-Saharan market. But it requires, and that's mostly here in the first section, the innovators. Those are the startups that are looking to scale. Those are the SMEs that are taking, that are growing and that are trying to reach new markets. There's also some multinationals that are pushing products into the market. But one particular aspect here is that we also have to think of the financing, that we have to think of the servicing and maintenance, etc. And that's where this ecosystem comes to life, where a diverse range of actors comes together on the market at varying levels of maturity and collaborates. And that's really the space that is, in my opinion, the most innovative and exciting, because here we are trying to not just become specialists in doing everything, but actually working in partnerships on sort of the scaling of these new off-grid solutions. And one particular point that is quite interesting as well is the role of mini grid operators, just in the sense of a lot of mini grid operators diversify their sort of what they offer, their products and services. So it's not just energy a lot of times, but they're actually offering, for example, for e-mobility, rental, but also sort of maintenance, recharging stations for various technological applications, etc. And it's interesting to see where this is going, how these utility providers also play a role in service provision, and yeah, and how that will how that will come closer together and hopefully yeah, help in scaling the innovation. Is there a market potential? This is the next thing that IFC and Dalberg in this case looked into. And here we can see that there is quite a significant market for solar off-grid. It is the new frontier. It's not just about lighting, it's in a sort of household level work, but it's really about reaping the benefits of sort of productive uses and generating extra income with the energy produced. And this is really where it gets exciting, because then it makes actual business sense to invest. This is when there's real business models and business cases for off-grid solar applications. From the research, you can see that most companies are not yet at a scale that we would call mainstream. Most companies sell less than 10,000 units a year of whatever product they offer, if it be a solar pump or a cooling system. But it is growing, and it's basically these companies that we're trying to help to reach the broader mainstream and go over 10,000 sales a year. If you look at the markets, we see, of course, the big players, Kenya and Nigeria, as the top sales markets. But we also have Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Rwanda, and a bit of South Africa. So a lot of East Africa here for sales markets. So, and this is like really a survey-based numbers from manufacturers, distributors, CEOs and founders of companies of where they see the market going. And if I look at this, I see a future. I hope you do too. I hope these are inspiring numbers. But we have to distinguish between addressable and serviceable markets. So the estimated productive use is the market for that is about $11.3 billion US. So that's huge. If we look at the serviceable market, so considering affordability, constraints and distribution issues, then we're only looking, still a big market, but we're looking at about $734 million US in the serviceable markets. Irrigation pumps seem to be the biggest player, but in particular as off-grid applications for processing develops, we can expect a bit of growth here as well in terms of the serviceable market. There are barriers to this, we are aware of it. Of course, there's operational barriers, as in people, the technologies offered or the solutions offered aren't as productive as they, or as effective and efficient as they promise to be. But at the same time, a lot of this can be done, can be outdone with trainings. It can be can be addressed with awareness creation. At the policy level, of course, sort of voluntary standards and yeah, compliance checks can be of course can help, but in general, financial barriers are the sorry.
This is
one of the sorry, I heard Julie in there. Some of the issues that still need addressing. What I'm trying to say with this is, when we are now looking at off-grid solar technologies, in this case, it's not just about the technologies. We're looking at distributors. We're looking at that ecosystem that I proposed, and particularly the financing solutions and collaborations with financial institutions are crucial. And that's really where where this cross-sectoral nature comes in, because if you provide energy and you make money with it by using it in a productive manner, then you have a business case which you might not have with lightning. That's not new, but it is exactly where the potential for new for a greater uptake comes in. The other example that I want to just look at is e-mobility. There is great potential. I just sort of divided and conquered into solar powered, which might be more focused on, well, solar powered e-vehicles. Often, particularly here in East Africa, we have 2- and 3-wheelers as the fastest growing transport mode. If we look at numbers, this is from a World Bank report. We're looking at about 270 million motorcycles. These are worldwide numbers, with an increase of about 50% use of motorcycles. Now, if we think of that as shifting towards batteries that are electrically powered, ideally solar powered, charged by 2030, then we have a massive reduction in CO2 emissions, as well as monetary savings for fuel, etc., by 2050. So there's a real good argument as to particularly focusing on 2- and 3-wheelers, but generally sort of looking at the transport industry to go into e-mobility. Green hydrogen is another hot topic at the moment, of course. Costs are falling. This is the World Bank report. Our costs are falling, and particularly in Kenya, as we are in Kenya now, there's incredible potential simply because there's such high daily irradiation, particularly in the north, that is worth looking into investing in. This is where the exciting things are happening and where definitely discussions are taking place. To particularly look at heavier transport, so heavier vehicles, trucks, buses, etc., for the use of green hydrogen. So that's the potential. And then a skeptic could say, well, this is kind of European, they have the infrastructure, this might not really work yet in Africa. I want to yeah, there we have it. So there is already discussions with, particularly around the bus rapid transport, with the Kenyan government and then private actors as well. Yeah, basically, is it too early for e-mobility in Kenya? I'd say nah, things are happening. At the moment, of course, we're still looking at smaller companies. There's just a few. It's absolutely not a comprehensive list of sort of these different actors in the space. But what's interesting is this is not just an urban phenomenon, it's also in rural areas, that particularly e-cargo bikes, e-motorbikes are being used, and that charging and rental services are being developed. WE2 is one of them. They are around Lake Victoria, or on the shores of Lake Victoria. A lot of it is still in the piloting stages, but we are looking at integrated business models, for example. So if you have an electric motorbike and you can combine that with cooling, solar powered cooling, are there opportunities for example, the horticulture sector to use these cooling and transport solutions to close gaps in particularly first mile gaps in the cold chain for agriculture? And does that help us to aggregate produce and then sell at a better rate, for example? We also looked at the fish industry. If you have a cold value chain and you can provide fresh fish to cities, in Western it would be Kisumu, but as well as Nairobi or even Kampala. In the north, when you look at Turkana, you have a lot of growing markets around the refugee camps. Lodwar is growing. The cities are growing there, or the towns are growing in the north. And particularly in the heat, those solutions combined transport and cooling could be a game changer. And again, it would mean that, well, we're looking into it if there is a prime, if there's a premium paid for these products that are using energy, in this case for cooling. There's mostly assembling happening, but in the same spirit, it would be worth looking into, okay, what are the opportunities for manufacturing of e-transport solutions? What are the opportunities for jobs, for green jobs? And it is a dynamic market. Things are happening. And initially, now we have a new transport strategy also here for Kenya with greater ambitions to electrify the transport sector. And so that is yet another example of where we take collectively greater strides into in greening, in innovating the energy sector across transport and agriculture and other topics. The second point that I had was about why not take the lead in Africa? Why not be visionary? And that's basically building on this. There's a lot of opportunities for manufacturing as well. Why import technologies when you can do it here? And with new things, well, there's increasingly more also these smaller companies, the conversions, where there is skills, where there is the setup available to do that, to do the assembling, etc. here. The second point is the growing population, the growing middle class means that there is increasingly more leisure time, and there is I don't know, if we dream, if we innovate, if we think about, okay, what is possible, what are new ways of doing it? We can take the old. I always think of the car wash with the nyama choma. People like it. Why not also combine that and have a charging station there? So we're looking not just at sort of the hardware and the technologies, but we're looking at ways of how the distribution can be done, how charging can be done, and there's a lot of entrepreneurship in people's minds that to pick that up, and it's nice to see that. I mentioned particularly the Lake region, Victoria Lake region, but in other places we also have yeah, it's wonderful to travel the country and to see what is happening there. So that's more on a side note. It's a strategic decision to invest in new ideas, of taking the risk as early adopters, and working on getting the prices down, because essentially that's what defines on whether an innovation is taken up. And leading into this is sort of the final point. It's also about business and financial models. I let Jenny Fletcher talk about what Area of Energy is doing, and innovators are doing great things around energy efficiency. But I do want to mention the ESCO model that also innovators is pushing for, which is the idea of an energy saving company. And it's what is innovative to us, and what we're really as GIZ trying to support is, as I said, not the technology, but also these business models. And this is, of course, interesting because the ESCO company, is implementing and arranging for the financing of energy efficiency measures in facilities, and they're signing these energy saving performance contracts to essentially get a payment back from the savings that are achieved through these energy efficiency measures. The barrier, of course, is that companies don't often have the time, the expertise, the capital investment to implement such measures, and the value proposition is really, oh, we'll take care of that. and will help you reduce costs, upgrade your infrastructure, reduce your carbon footprint, and stabilize your energy supply, essentially. It's a great model. It's these kind of models that are coming out that are really that are, you know, pushing the boundaries, that are changing the sector in itself, how it's operating. And it's I think there that we have a lot, we can learn a lot, and go forward. Just to give you two more sort of business model ideas here. This is Inspira Farms in Rwanda, but I've seen similar models with cold hubs in Nigeria, with Soko Fresh here in Kenya and others. In this case, they're providing solar-powered cold rooms or pack houses, and either they provide in-house financing for clients to repay the costs for the installation of such systems, or they have sort of a pay-as-you-chill system where they work with local entrepreneurs who are running the cooling system and are charging customers that are using the cold storage a certain fee according to what is stored to recover the costs. Another very interesting example of how you can bring these solutions to people without breaking bank. And the last example is sun culture. It's often, it often comes up. Sun culture is very active. But what's interesting here is that they have started to look into sort of different uses for the solar energy or solar panels that are being installed. In this, at the moment, it's light and for phone charging, but also sort of the diversification of services. They do soil testing, and also crucially, they're looking into linking with an Internet of Things, with other data on climate, on rainfall, etc., so that farmers can be better informed about when to apply water, how much, what are the crop water requirements, about fertilizer use, pesticide use, etc. Basically through additional advisory services and data of IoT platforms. And it's exactly this interoperability, that's the third point of the title, really, where there's a lot of potential, and yeah, where we're supporting as well. And that's sort of kind of coming to my conclusion. I've mentioned Water and Energy for Food in WE a lot. It's a multi-donor organized an initiative, and we support such innovations as I've just mentioned. Mostly small and medium-sized enterprises in East and in West Africa, but we also have regional hubs in Asia, in the MENA region. And what we offer is financial assistance, investment advisory and business development support, as well as we can support R&D, partnerships, market studies, impact assessments, etc. And it's really through a similar setup that we got to know Area Finergy. Yeah, what I can say for now is that the innovation call is for the East Africa region and the West Africa region will be held in early 2021. And of course, we encourage companies to apply and help us, well, take action, as Caroline said, to scale up these innovations and change the future of the energy sector in Africa. Okay, thank you very much.
Right.